Hi everyone! In this video, I'm doing my July bullet journal spread. This month's theme is a flower garden theme. It's a combination of gardening and flowers. Let's get started with the first page. For the cover page, I'm drawing flowers in a wheelbarrow cart. The cart is super simple to draw. First, draw a circle for the wheel. Then draw a trapezoid shape for the main body. Lastly, add rectangle-like shapes for the legs and handles. I'm writing July at the top using faux calligraphy. First, I outlined the letters and made the downstrokes thicker. I left space in the downstrokes for me to fill in. Then I just filled it in. I'm finishing up the flower wheelbarrow cart by adding some flowers on top. I used pastel markers. I wanted to create a softer look, so I didn't outline the flowers. I made the flowers in different sizes and overlapped some of them. Try not to put two of the same colored flowers next to each other. I used a darker marker to add depth and shadows to the petals. If you don't know what a bullet journal is, it's basically an organization system that you can customize to your own needs. It's like a calendar, planner, to-do list, and place to write tasks all in one notebook. I like to be artistic in my bullet journal, so I'll be adding drawings. I scribbled yellow and mint green marker ink on plastic and mixed them together to create a yellow-green color. I'm using a colorless blender to pick the ink up. This is a good way to get new colors if you don't have the right shade. Now I'm drawing some twig-like plants here and there to fill in the space and add some variation so that it's not just flowers. For most of the flowers, I colored the center of the flower darker. At the bottom of the cart, I'm doodling some grass and little flowers. It's okay if it looks messy because it isn't the main focus. I added this to make it look like the ground so that the wheelbarrow isn't just floating in the middle of the page. Now I'm filling in the empty space with some green. After erasing all of the pencil marks, I'm going to color the wheelbarrow. To color the wheelbarrow cards, I'm using some chalk pastel. This brown pastel will give it a wooden look. I'm using my finger to blend it out. Some parts didn't blend out and left lines on the paper, which makes it look like wood. I'm erasing the chalk pastel that went out of the lines. There's still some empty parts, so I'm using a colored pencil to fill it in. A colored pencil is more precise than a chalk pastel, so I can use it to color in the small areas. I'm also using colored pencils to give definition to the flowers. The colored pencil is darker and adds depth that they couldn't get with just markers. I colored in the parts where the petals overlapped. To finish it off, I'm adding a piece of brown paper that I got from packaging. I will be using lots of brown paper throughout this video. I tore the paper to get a rough edge. Then I glued it on the bottom of the page. I added this to fill in the empty space on the bottom. Here's the finished cover page. Next, I'm doing the monthly calendar. For this month, I decided to do a floating box style. I used a ruler, but instead of drawing a straight line down, I stopped to create a gap in between every box. Then I just freehanded the top and bottom lines. If you want perfect lines, then you can use a ruler, but I like this organic shape kind of look. I rounded the corners to make it look softer. I made a mistake in the line, so I used a white gel pen to cover it. It didn't really cover it completely, but I just needed to be opaque enough for me to write on top. At the top of the page, I wrote July in cursive. I used the same faux calligraphy method as the cover page, but I made the lines thicker so that it would stand out more. Now I'm adding a notes box on the side of the calendar. I'm also drawing some flowers at the top. I used the same colors of markers as the cover page to create the flowers. There are only 5 flowers, so I made each one a different type. was done with the flowers, I just added a few green leaves and stems. I used colored pencils to shade and add depth to the flowers, just like the cover page. Now I'm adding a drop shadow to July so it doesn't look too flat. I'll erase the pencil marks and write in the dates. I colored in each date with a different colored marker. I cut out a strip of brown paper for the header of the days of the weeks and glued it down. I also cut out a header for the notes section. I'm just writing the days of the weeks in a simple cursive font. I wanted to fill in the corner of the page, so I'm adding a few dried flowers. To make these dried flowers, just pick some flowers outside and put them in between a book with many heavy books on top. I left my flowers under the books for about 3 weeks, but it's already good to use after 2 weeks. I glued them down, then added some washi tape to secure it and make it look more put together. Here's the finished calendar spread. Moving on to the quote page. This page is just for fun and doesn't really have a function. I cut out a brown paper rectangle and folded the edges. Since this theme is a flower garden, I thought it would be cool to make a seed packet for the quote page. The quote is going to be on the seed packet. I glued the fake seed packet in the middle of the page. The folded edges under the paper make it look like an actual seed packet since it's 3D. To make it look even more like a real seed packet, I wrote wildflower seeds on it. So for the quote, I'm writing grow stronger. This matches the garden theme and it's nice and short. I don't want to put a long quote because the seed packet doesn't have a lot of room to write on. I'm drawing a flower wreath design to frame the quote. The wreath is very simple. It's just a repeating pattern of twigs and flower buds in a circle. I added a long stem to the flower bud so that it can form a circle shape. Keep repeating the twig and flower bud until you reach the end of the circle. And that's the finished seed packet. I want to tie in more of the garden theme, so I'm drawing garden tools at the bottom of the page. I drew a watering can, a mini shovel, and a mini garden hoe. I'm adding some lines for details and shading. To finish everything off, I'm adding flowers all around the seed packet. I just glued everything down with a glue stick. You have to be careful with dried flowers because they break easily. As you can see, the stem broke off of this flower when I was gluing it. Before I move on, I just want to add a few more details to the garden tools. And that finishes the quote page. I really love how this turned out. Next, we have the YouTube video plan page. This is where I'll write all my video ideas and plans for my videos. If you don't make YouTube videos, you can turn this page into a brain dump, where you can write all your notes and ideas. I added a line around the edge of the page for a border. At the bottom of the page, I'm drawing a raised wooden flower bed. Then I'm drawing 4 simple flowers on top. I don't want to make the flowers too big and take up space because I need room to write. Once I had the flowers outlined, I drew some lines for details. I just scribbled some lines on the petals for shading. I left the flowers black and white because I'm going to add dried flowers for color later. On the wooden flower bed, I'm using some chalk pastel to color it. I like to use chalk pastel instead of markers or colored pencil because it's super quick to color it in and it creates a nice wooden texture. I'm using a colored pencil to touch up some areas and add more precise wood grains. The last step is to add some dried flowers for some color. I positioned the flowers so that it looks like it's growing in the flower bed, along with the flowers that I drew. Now I'm moving on to the habit tracker. This page will help me figure out which habits I need to do more often. At the top, I wrote habit tracker in a simple cursive font. I think a simple font is best for this page because there's going to be a lot of things below it. I'm drawing 9 individual mini calendars for each habit. The calendars have rounded corners. I didn't make them perfect because I wanted the shape to look organic and soft. After I wrote each habit, I highlighted them with a brush marker. I accidentally messed up on the last header and used a different marker, so I had to change the color of all the pink headings. The bottom of the page looks a little bit empty, so I'm gluing on this torn piece of brown paper. I'm gluing on some dried flowers and plants on top of the brown paper. Now I just need to finish up my title and add some darker lines to make it pop. To use this, every day I'll fill in a box in each of these calendars, each time I do the habit. On the very next page, I'm doing my mood tracker. This is where I'll track my moods and see how many happy days I have compared to bad days. For the mood tracker, I use the same simple cursive font as the habit tracker, because there's going to be a lot of stuff on this page. I have a key that shows which color to use for each mood, and I'll color in each flower depending on my mood. Now I'm using the chalk pastel for the background. Since this is a flower garden theme, I wanted it to look like the flowers were planted in the garden, so I'm using the chalk pastel to color around the flowers and make it look like dirt. You can see that the chalk made the background have a texture like dirt. This makes it look like the flowers are planted in a garden. After I blended it out, you can still see some white areas, so I'm going to use a brown colored pencil to fill it in. Now that I'm done with the background, I'll draw 31 flowers. Here's how to draw the 4 main types of flowers that I use. Rose. Start with a curly bit in the center. Add curved lines going around it and keep building up by adding more curved lines on top of the previous ones. Keep going in a circular pattern until you reach your desired size. For the next one, make a dot in the center. Add 4 similar sized round petals coming from the dot. Add some pollen in the center by drawing lines with small dots. For hibiscus, start with a long stigma in the center, then add 4 to 5 petals. Make the petals have more angles or little cuts and bumps to them. They don't need to be perfect. For the daisy, just make a circle in the center. Then add long petals going all around the circle until the petals fill the circle. Add a second round of petals in between to fill in the space. And those are the 4 main flowers that I drew. I tried to make each one different by changing the size, number of petals, and other variations. When changing the size, make sure to make the flowers big enough so you can color them in. I drew 31 flowers because there are 31 days in July, so I will fill in my mood by coloring a flower for each day. To make it look even more like a flower garden, I'm using brown chalk pastel to draw some lines in between the flowers like rose. I just blended out the lines to make it look softer. To demonstrate, here's how I'll color in the flower to track my mood. I'll use the key to color in depending on my mood. The last thing I'll do is add the dates next to each flower. And now we're done. The last spread is the weekly spread where I'll write my task and to-do list for each day. The first week of July is only 4 days, so I'll make 4 boxes. I'll keep adding more weeks as the weeks go by. This way I can customize my spreads each week to fit my needs. Since this week is not a full week, I'm not going to add my weekly task and events box. If you want to see 2 full weeks, check out my June bullet journal setup. Click the card above to see it. I'm drawing the top and bottom of the boxes freehand so it looks rounded and less sharp. For the heading of the dates, I decided to create wooden garden signs using brown paper. First I glued a thin strip for the stick. Then I glued a rectangle on top to cover it. I did this for the rest of the headings. I wrote the dates on top of the signs. It turned out super cute and I really think it matches the garden theme. After I wrote the days of the week, I highlighted them in a different color with markers. At the top, I'm drawing some more flowers. I drew these flowers in the same way as the previous flowers on the calendar page.
When you speak
writing week 1 at the top of the page for the title. I'll be gluing down these dried plants and flowers at the bottom of the page to fill in the empty space. Lastly, I just erased the pencil marks and added a few finishing touches. Before the final flip through, don't forget to give this video a like. Now on to the final flip through. This garden theme is perfect for spring or summer when all the flowers are blue. Please subscribe to my channel for more art videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.